Imagine a world where your marriage wasn't about love, but land. Where a yawn could literally annul a wedding, and your spouse might be a child you've never met. Welcome, curious learners, to the bewildering, often frustrating, but undeniably fascinating world of medieval relationship rules. Today, we're going to peel back the layers of history to uncover the intricate tapestry of love, marriage, and social contracts from roughly the 5th to the 15th century. Forget everything you think you know about romance. The Middle Ages had its own unique and often baffling playbook for human connection. We'll explore everything from arranged alliances and the stern hand of the church, to the surprising legal loopholes and the stark realities of gender inequality. So, buckle up, or rather don your finest medieval garb, as we journey back in time to understand why medieval people might have been yawning through their own relationship rules, and what we can learn from their challenges. To truly grasp medieval relationship rules, we must first understand the bedrock upon which they were built. A society fundamentally different from our own. This was a world of feudalism, where land equaled power, and survival often depended on alliances. Personal feelings took a back seat to practical considerations like inheritance, political stability, and economic security. For the nobility, marriage was a strategic merger of estates, a way to consolidate power, expand territories, and secure heirs. For commoners, it was about creating a viable household, sharing labor, and ensuring progeny to work the land. There was little room for the modern ideal of love matches. In a time rife with conflict, disease, and uncertainty, ensuring the continuation of one's lineage and social standing was paramount. Every relationship, every marriage was viewed through the lens of its utility to the family, the Lord, or the community. Let's be clear. For much of the Middle Ages, marriage was primarily a legal, economic, and social contract, far removed from our modern romantic notions. Especially among the aristocratic elite, a wedding was less about two hearts uniting and more about two families merging their assets. Negotiations could last for years, involving detailed discussions about dowries, property rights, and future inheritances. Political alliances were forged and broken over marriage agreements. Imagine being a teenager, learning your future spouse was chosen by your parents, often someone you'd never met, from a distant kingdom, solely to secure a border or prevent a war. Love, if it ever developed, was a fortunate byproduct, not a prerequisite. This pragmatic approach ensured stability in a turbulent world, but it also meant personal desires were often sacrificed at the altar of dynastic ambition. The journey to marriage often began incredibly early. Betrothal, or sponsalia, was a serious and legally binding promise to marry in the future. It could occur when children were mere infants, solidifying alliances long before the parties could even walk. While consummation was typically required for a marriage to be truly binding in the Church's eyes, these early betrothals created powerful, unbreakable bonds. The concept of an age of consent was fluid and varied. While the church eventually set the age at 12 for girls and 14 for boys, these were often minimums for consummation or formal vows, not for betrothal itself. Imagine being betrothed at 5, growing up knowing your future was already decided, and then, upon reaching puberty, being expected to fulfill that promise. This practice highlights how little individual agency medieval people, especially women, had in their romantic lives. Money, or rather property, was central to medieval marriages. Two key financial instruments defined a woman's economic standing: the dowry and the dower. The dowry was property, goods, or money that a bride brought to her husband upon marriage, essentially her family's contribution to the new household. It was often a significant sum, reflecting the family's wealth and status. The dower, on the other hand, was the portion of her husband's estate that a wife was legally entitled to receive upon his death. It was her financial security as a widow, ensuring she wouldn't be left destitute. The sizes of dowries and dowers were meticulously negotiated, sometimes dictating the very feasibility of a match. A substantial dowry could make an otherwise less desirable bride attractive, while a weak dower could leave a woman vulnerable. These financial arrangements underscore the transactional nature of medieval marriage and the crucial, albeit often unequal, economic roles of men and women. The medieval church wielded immense power over all aspects of life, and relationships were no exception. Canon law, the body of ecclesiastical legislation, dictated the rules of marriage, dictating everything from who could marry whom to the very definition of a valid union. One of its most crucial tenets was the requirement of consummation. While a betrothal was a serious promise, and vows exchanged per verbo de presenti, words of the present tense, like "I take you as my wife," were often considered binding, a marriage was not fully perfected in the eyes of the church until it had been physically consummated. This meant that if a marriage was never consummated, it could be annulled, declared as if it never happened, rather than divorced. Divorce, as we know it, was virtually non-existent. Separation a mensa e thoro, from bed and board, was possible, but did not allow remarriage. Consummation wasn't just about procreation. It was a symbolic and legal act affirming the union, making the physical reality a crucial part of the spiritual bond. While the church sought to regulate marriage, it also strictly forbade certain unions. The concept of incest was far broader than our modern understanding. It wasn't just about immediate family. It extended to distant cousins, godparents, and even relatives by marriage. This was due to the Church's extensive rules on consanguinity, or blood relationship, and affinity, relationship by marriage. Marrying someone within 7 degrees of blood relation, or even someone related to your spouse's previous partner, was prohibited. This created a massive web of forbidden relationships, often leading to challenges for noble families who, due to their limited social circles, frequently found themselves marrying cousins. Obtaining a papal dispensation for such marriages became a common, albeit expensive, necessity, highlighting the Church's power to bend its own rules for political expediency. These prohibitions aimed to prevent genetic issues, but also served to expand the pool of potential marriage partners, preventing powerful families from consolidating too much wealth and influence. Adultery in the Middle Ages was a serious transgression, but its consequences were dramatically different for men and women. For a wife, committing adultery was a grievous sin and a crime against her husband's property rights and his lineage. It could lead to severe punishment, including public shaming, ostracization, or even violence, and often resulted in the loss of her dower rights and the dissolution of her marriage. The fear of an illegitimate heir inheriting property was paramount. For a husband, however, the rules were far more lenient. While technically a sin, male adultery was often overlooked or treated with far less severity, particularly if the mistress was of lower status. The double standard was stark, reflecting a patriarchal society where women's sexuality was tightly controlled, while men's was largely tolerated. This glaring inequality underscores the fundamental power imbalance inherent in medieval relationships. Amidst the pragmatic realities of arranged marriages and strict social codes, an idealized concept emerged.